What if I told you most ancient humans didn't actually live in caves? Because here's the strange part. Almost everything you've ever imagined about cavemen is wrong. The fire at the mouth of the cave, the fur, the bones, the family huddled in darkness. That picture feels ancient. It feels obvious. But it survives for one very strange reason. Stone remembers. Wood doesn't. Grass doesn't. Hide doesn't. An open-air camp can vanish almost completely. A cave can preserve charcoal, footprints, tools, ash, butchered bone, layers of repeated visits. So when archaeologists dig into prehistory, caves speak louder than everything else. And for generations, we made a mistake the human brain is almost designed to make. We confused what survived with what was normal. But that distortion hides something far stranger, because it turns prehistoric humans into passive creatures waiting for nature to give them shelter. In reality, they were doing something far more impressive. They were reading landscapes, choosing ground, testing wind, watching water. They were not simply finding home, they were making it. So where did they actually live? That question changes how you should see the ancient mind. Because caves were never perfect homes anyway. A cave could save your life, or become the place you died. Imagine sleeping deep inside one. Not the romantic version, the real one. You hear drips you can't locate. You smell old ash, wet rock, animal musk. Firelight reaches only so far, and beyond it, the chamber keeps going, black and silent and unknowable. One mistake with fire could quietly fill the cave with smoke while everyone slept. Water could seep through stone. One entrance could be a shield or a trap. Ancient humans were not fools hiding in caves because they didn't know better. They were strategists making trade-offs. A shallow overhang might be better than a deep chamber. A temporary camp near water might be safer than a cave too far from prey. A well-built windbreak in the right place might beat a stone shelter in the wrong one. But if they weren't living in caves, where was the evidence? Here's the problem. Almost everything early humans actually built has disappeared. That may be one of the strangest truths in archaeology. The most ordinary parts of human life are often the hardest to recover. A dramatic cave layer can survive for thousands of years. A family's camp on the open plain can dissolve into almost nothing. Wind scatters the ash. Poles rot. Grass collapses. Hides get carried away. Rain smears the floor into dirt. Centuries later, all that remains may be a faint stain, a few stone tools, a pattern so subtle only someone trained to read absence can see it. And yet the evidence is there. Open-air sites with structured hearths, repeated activity zones, post holes where supports once stood, even substantial dwellings in some Ice Age landscapes, built from whatever the environment offered, including bone where timber was scarce. Not because Stone Age humans had become civilized in the modern sense, because they were already engineers of human survival. Picture a child watching an elder bend the same branch every winter. 20 years later, he teaches his own children the exact same shelter. That knowledge doesn't survive in stone. It survives in hands, in memory, in trust. That's why you still feel something ancient when you build a fire, arrange a campsite, or turn an empty room into a place that feels like yours. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten. But here's the question that changes everything. If ancient humans could build shelters anywhere, why did they keep moving? Because home was never a place. It was a process. Find the ground, read the wind, gather the material, build enough for this night, or this season, or this return. Set the hearth, protect the vulnerable, organize the sleeping space, keep waste away, repair what fails. Leave when staying becomes dangerous. That is not primitive wandering. That is disciplined flexibility. That is how nomadic humans survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherers found something unexpected. Hadza camps in Tanzania move roughly every 6 weeks. Camp membership constantly shifts as people move in and out. Shelters rise and disappear, but the intelligence doesn't vanish with the walls. It travels, in memory, in routines. In the hands of people who know which branch bends, which ground floods, which direction keeps the smoke from choking the sleepers. And this is where the story changes. Because the real human breakthrough wasn't the first hut. It was the first reliable way of turning exposure into safety together. That required more than materials. It required shared attention, cooperation, teaching, repair, someone to gather poles, someone to prepare coverings, someone to watch children, someone to remember the last storm, someone to say, "Not there, the ground will flood," someone to notice the wind has changed, someone to contribute instead of free riding, because if they didn't, everybody paid for it at night. A shelter is never just walls. It is frozen cooperation. And this explains something modern humans still do today. Look at your own home. You create zones instantly. Food here, waste there. Children where they can be seen. Valuables within reach. Shared attention around light, heat, or food. In deep prehistory, that was a fire. Now it might be a table, a kitchen island, a television, a lamp in the center of a room. The materials changed. The logic did not. That's why you still choose the seat facing the room. That's why a windowless room can feel wrong even when it's perfectly safe. That's why you sleep better when the sounds around you become familiar. That's why an unfamiliar hotel room can leave some primitive part of you half awake all night. Your brain still carries this program. Even our evening behavior echoes something older. Among hunter-gatherers like the Jew, Hoansi of southern Africa, daylight conversation revolves around tasks, problems, tensions. But at night, around firelight, talk shifts. Stories expand. Memory expands. Imagination expands. The group becomes more than a cluster of bodies surviving another day. It becomes a moral world where cooperation can be repaired and carried forward. So why did ancient humans stop living in caves? They didn't. Not completely. Some caves remained useful for thousands of years. Some were seasonal refuges. Some were work sites. Some may have been symbolic places as much as domestic ones. What changed was deeper than abandonment. Humans outgrew dependence. A cave is safety tied to geography. A human home is safety produced by knowledge. That is a far bigger story than cave bad, house good. It means the real revolution happened when early humans could arrive in a place with no natural shelter and still not be helpless. When an empty landscape stopped being empty, when branch became frame, hide became wall, fire became climate, and a group became an architecture of trust. Imagine arriving at an exposed plain at the end of a long day. No cave, no stone ceiling, just wind, grass, animal tracks, and clouds thickening in the distance. To most animals, this is exposure. To a group of prehistoric humans, it was a camp waiting to happen. Fear doesn't disappear. It becomes actionable. And that ability to convert fear into coordination may be the most underrated survival skill in all of human evolution. Now the title finally makes sense. Ancient humans didn't stop living in caves because caves were bad. They stopped needing them because they learned something more powerful. They learned that ancient shelter isn't a place you find. It's something you know how to build together, anywhere, in any season, with whatever the land offers. That is the real story of human survival. Not a line from cave to hut to house to city, but a repeating act of intelligence. Read the land, gather the people, make the world livable. The Ice Age didn't break them. The open plains didn't stop them. Nomadic humans carried no permanent home on their backs. They carried something better, the knowledge to build one wherever they stood. And the deepest part of that story is still inside you. Every time you check the locks, every time you lower the lights, every time you arrange a room until it feels right, every time you sit with your back to the wall and your eyes on the door, you are not being paranoid. You are running a program older than any building ever made. The greatest invention in human history wasn't the house. It was the moment humans realized they could build one anywhere. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to BackTimes, hit the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves history.